When Duke Ellington and his orchestra recorded the swing hit Cottontail in 1940, American society was sharply divided along racial lines. Most institutions, including the military, schools, housing, restaurants, hotels, professional sports, were segregated either by law or by practice. And yet, in dance halls like New York City's Savoy Ballroom, where Ellington frequently played, whites and African Americans alike thronged to hear the hottest bands and dance the newest steps together. By 2000, Americans as a whole were far from accepting of the idea of social diversity than they had been 100 years before. Over the course of the 20th century, the image of a social melting pot had given way to the idea of society as a mosaic of different cultures and traditions, each contributing in its own distinctive way toward the larger whole. Music played an important role in this change. Styles with roots in the traditions of African American culture, in particular, helped bridge the divide between the races. As early as the 1930s, whites and blacks were playing together in instrumental ensembles. Ragtime, the blues, jazz, rock, and hip-hop all became a part of mainstream America culture. But the move across racial and social divides was never easy. At different times, every one of these very same kinds of music erupted as a flashpoint of social conflict. In the 20s, many white parents expressed open opposition to the sexual overtones in ragtime and jazz. Many of their children, in turn, were shocked in the 50s when white teenagers began listening, and even worse, dancing, to rock and roll music heavily influenced by a style traditionally associated with the music of African Americans. Throughout the 20th century, pop music has been an integral part of a social change and protest. Gospel in the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s, psychedelia in the anti-war movement of the 60s and 70s, punk music as an outcry against economic repression in the 70s and 80s, and hip-hop as a statement on racism and discrimination at the end of the century and beyond. It was a revelation for French composer Claude Debussy when in 1889 he heard the Javanese musical ensemble known as the Gamelin play at Paris's International Exposition, the same event that gave us the Eiffel Tower. A gamelan includes many percussion instruments, drums, gongs, and xylophones, among others, and its music was what Western ears often perceive as a floating, non-directional quality that operates outside the conventions of Western harmony. Debussy was so impressed by this kind of sound that he incorporated elements of it into his Voilà for piano in 1910. You can check out more about that in chapter 45, but in an age before recording, such cross-cultural musical encounters were rare. Few gamelan ensembles had ever performed outside of what is now Indonesia, and if Debussy had wanted to travel there, it would have taken him several weeks by steamship. Thanks to air travel, gamelan ensembles perform all over the world today, and recordings make their music even more widely available. By the late 40s, the American composer John Cage knew the sound of the gamelan from recordings, and the influence of his timbre is amply evident in some of his music for prepared piano, a standard instrument altered in such a way to produce both pitched and unpitched sounds. Check out chapter 59 for more about that. Still later in the century, Philip Glass used the repeating small rhythmic and melodic patterns of the gamelan repertoire in many of his works. The growing ease of telecommunications and transportation made the world of 2000 a far smaller place than it had been in 1900. Telephones, fax machines, video transmissions, the internet made it possible to communicate from almost any point in the globe to almost any other. National economies grew, increasingly dependent on one another. Disparate cultures mingled even within individual composers and performers who often rebelled against the notion that they or their music belong strictly to one tradition or another, whether in the concert hall, the jazz club, or on the dance floor. Music had become a global phenomenon. Continue to move through this module, read all the chapters, listen to all of the listening examples. There's so much good stuff here, but don't procrastinate. Keep up. You are doing so great. See you soon.